Welcome to the KwikFlight B2 Spirit for MSFS. In this video we'll take it for a full flight, see how it performs and whether it's worth the asking price. So let's go. Stepping inside the flight deck and heading over to the MFD, we're going to switch it to map mode and we'll see that the flight that I've planned in the world map has automatically pulled through to the airplane. There isn't really a lot of pre-flight to do in this airplane. It does supposedly have an FMC, but none of the click spots seem to work in SU-14, so we're going to skip that for now. On the subject of redundant buttons, we've got an altitude selector. You can select your desired altitude, but even with autopilot on, the plane doesn't automatically level off there, so you can pretty much ignore that one. Same with the vertical speed mode. It has a vertical speed selector, but there's no indication of what your selected vertical speed is, and there's no way to activate a vertical mode in the autopilot. So either I'm missing something, or it's just a really bizarre omission in this airplane. Other cool features before we take off include a forward-facing synthetic vision camera view, which you can pull up on the MFD. Looking at the autopilot modes, all we need to activate for now is nav mode, and we can see GPS is in green. Okay, so takeoff roll is park and brake off, full power, rotate, gear up upon positive rate, and I'm going to activate the autopilot almost immediately after takeoff. I'm going to reduce the throttle and trim the airplane into a slight climb. The KwikFlight B2 has no problem following the plan that we've set out here. It's fairly comfortable at around 250 knots. Now we've taken off, we can see another cool feature on the MFD, which is a downward facing terrain camera. When I've reached an altitude that I'm happy to settle at, I'm going to activate altitude hold mode and the airplane levels off with no issue. At this point I'll apply full throttle to see how fast we can cruise. The B2 tops out at Mach 0.85 or around 350 knots indicated at 26,000 feet. Alright, so now let's look at some fun stuff. You see the ready for release indicator up here. If we open the cargo doors, and we hit release cargo, the airplane will deploy the ordnance that it holds within. If you get the airplane from the Microsoft Store, I believe that functionality is missing. Let's also look at stealth mode, which blink and you'll miss it, simply retracts and extends the landing lights on the wings. The airplane supposedly supports ILS, and for that I want to display the ILS bars on my PFD, and that can be found in the MFD menus. So heading back to the PFD now, we'll be able to see ILS indicators when we get close to the airport. At top of descent, which is directed by ATC because the plane doesn't really have vertical mode, I simply disable altitude hold, idle the throttle and pitch the nose down ever so slightly using trim, and the airplane settles into a steady descent. When I've reached my bottom of descent, so about 4,000 feet for the terrain around Glasgow Airport, I'll activate altitude hold again and just bring the throttles up so the airplane maintains a steady and comfortable 200 knots or so. The airplane has no issue following any arrival or approach that you might have planned in the world map. And as we turn towards final, I'm going to activate approach mode, and I'll also drop the landing gear. So approach mode arms but never actually activates. I think that's possibly because I wasn't able to access the FMC and dial in our approach frequency. So what I'm going to do for landing is disable the autopilot and fly a manual approach. The B2 is pretty floaty at landing, as you'd expect for something that is essentially just a massive wing. The throttle's idle, but it takes a little bit of time for it to settle down. So this landing brings our review flight to an end. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this useful and enjoyable. If you did, please drop a like and feel free to subscribe as I make regular flight sim content. As for my final thoughts on this airplane, is it worth the I think it's £16 British asking price. It feels like a lot of stuff isn't working right now, so I would personally say no. And I believe Topmax Studios are also working on a B2 Spirit, so perhaps wait for that one. Take care everybody, and I'll see you next time in another Flight Sim video.